Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning. Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. What a week in Washington it's been. Nothing but chaos. Craziness abounds. And let's talk about it with our guest for this morning, Mark Caputo from Politico. Mark, have you ever seen a week quite like this in Washington?
I think we're going to ask ourselves that for the next 3 years of weeks. The Trump White House is a spectacle I think this nation has never seen.
I mean, it starts with Monday, his appearance before the Boy Scout Jamboree, in which he thanked the 12 to 14-year-olds for voting for him. He then went into an entire recipe about his electoral victory, told some sort of story about a weird sex party on a yacht, and then just continued on a riff about how Obama never came to see anyone there.
By the way, just a question. Did President Obama ever come to a jamboree?
Eventually, the Boy Scouts had to apologize. When the Boy Scouts are apologizing for the president coming, that's quite a thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. One thing that's really incredible is that Donald Trump was never a Boy Scout, and he got the Boy Scouts to boo the previous president, Barack Obama, who was a Boy Scout. Right. It's just like it's interesting.
All right, so the Boy Scouts was my favorite, even though it wasn't the most consequential. We'll get to healthcare in a second. Your favorite moment of the week? I'm guessing it might have been Scaramucci.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a past, or I've had in the past, people call and yell at me and swear at me, albeit in the case of the White House's new communications director, he wasn't swearing at the New Yorker reporter, but he called him up and proceeded to really launch into a fascinating Goodfellas-like, Godfather-esque tirade about almost everyone who's his enemy in the White House. It was really a window into the fact that the White House is this, it makes Game of Thrones look like Candyland, someone had once told me who worked in Trump world, and that's just kind of coming out in spades.
Well, I kind of almost see it like Donald Trump is viewing the White House like the Coliseum. You just put them in there with the lions and the Christians and the gladiators, and you let them all fight, and you see who lives and who dies. And it's just, at some point, I fully expect Donald Trump to come to the podium at the press briefing room and say, "Are you not amused? Are you not entertained?"
I think in the end, what we need to remember is that Donald Trump, though his approval rating is really horrible overall, among Republicans it's still very high, or at least among like high propensity Republican voters.
It's in the 80% range.
Correct. And one of the reasons for that is that in the Republican Party, in conservatism, there is a lot of dislike of elites and the news media. And the more chaos that kind of gets caused in Washington right now, the more it makes that portion of the Republican base actually appreciate Donald Trump, because he's sticking it to the man, he's sticking it to the establishment, he's turning Washington on its end, and they like that. So if anyone thinks that kind of the chaotic nature and the spectacle of the Trump White House is going to change, it's just probably going to become more chaotic and more of a spectacle, because that's basically the deliverable he can give to his base. He can't deliver on health care right now. The likelihood of delivering on tax reform, considering they couldn't repeal Obamacare, at least so far, is pretty slim. So what he's got left is this ability to stir up his base and triangulate off of the Republicans in Congress. Basically say, look, the problem is the politicians in Washington. The problem are the career politicians. I'm not a career politician.
You mentioned health care. Obviously, this went down. John McCain being the deciding vote. What a moment. I know you were up because I saw your tweets. I was up all of a sudden, 2:30 in the morning.
We have no lives.
We have no lives, but 2:30, Friday morning, I'm watching, and John McCain gives the, talk about your gladiator moments, the thumbs down, to the health care bill, and says votes no, and you could hear the senators just gasp, literally. Is this the end of the fight over health care?
Oh, no. Even if this vote fails or continues to fail, Obamacare is going to experience more and more problems, because like any piece of major legislation, any big government initiative, you constantly have to tweak it along the way. It's like a big ship. You can set the ship on its course, but winds and waves are going to knock it off course, and you constantly have to adjust it. If Congress does nothing, Obamacare likely will just continue to get worse and worse. So the question is whether Congress has the will to actually fix it or the will to actually repeal it. And right now it's going to be neither, so it's just going to be slowly decaying. At least that's how it appears at this moment. Anything can change.
The thing about the whole healthcare debate that I think is often overlooked and missed is the critical role that Marco Rubio played 2-3 years ago when he passed a measure that basically stripped out supports for insurance companies. The idea was that the federal government would act as a backstop for the insurance companies so that if they lost money on some of these policies, the federal government would be there to offer them some assistance. This had been done with other big governmental programs in the past, like Social Security, other things, but Marco Rubio strategically knew if you take this part of it out, it eventually will all cave in on itself. So really, the true architect of doing away with Obamacare has been Marco Rubio.
I think in part there has been a dispute over the degree to which Rubio was the mastermind of it. It does look like he played a major role, but he wasn't the only Republican in Congress doing it.
He likes to take credit for it.
Oh, yeah, well, you can't blame him because it's popular among his base. One of the debates that we're going to have in Florida, at a certain point, the legislature is going to have to examine this. Like, Florida is consistently one of the leading states for a high rate of uninsured people. We're also the leading state for the number of Obamacare enrollees. The state does not provide the type of jobs, the employers here, that help people get insurance and live lives where they don't feel, enough people that is, don't feel as if they're living hand to mouth.
I want to real quickly just touch on Jeff Sessions. I like to make the analogy, Jeff Sessions is now like the George Costanza character from Seinfeld, who locks himself in that fancy bathroom at Croker and refuses to leave. I think that's what Jeff Sessions has done. I think he's locked himself in the Justice Department, and you're going to have to pry him out of there.
I guess it's the bizarrest thing in the world to see the president's turning on his own attorney general in 6 months for following a pretty standard legal procedure, that is, recusing himself from an investigation that he was tangentially involved in.
All right, I want to turn to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's in the news again, not for very good reasons. A member of her staff was arrested as he was attempting to board a plane for Pakistan to leave the country after having wired several $100,000 out of the country. Mark, what is this story exactly?
That's a great question. In February is when it begins. There were 5 U.S. House IT staffers who were suspected of stealing equipment, computer equipment, from at least 20 members' offices and unlawfully or wrongly accessing the House IT network. And a criminal investigation ensued. Throughout, Wasserman Schultz has stood by her employee, but this week things got really bad. On Sunday, the FBI raided his home and seized smashed hard drives. Like, who smashes a hard drive? Do you do that? She stuck by him. And then on Monday, he got arrested, and she still stuck by him. On Tuesday, finally, when the story broke, she finally fired him.
Well, and this was an interesting issue because it had come up earlier in the year when she sort of entangled with the head of the D.C. Police Department, correct?
The Capitol
Police Department, because they were holding on to some of that equipment. I want to play a clip of an exchange at a committee hearing in which Wasserman Schultz seems to be threatening the Capitol Police Chief. Let's play that.
If the equipment belongs to the member, it has been lost. They say it's been lost and it's been identified as that member's, then the Capitol Police is supposed to return it. Correct?
Well, it's not I can't give a yes or no answer on that because I know
it's a simple yes or no answer. Well, if you if a member loses equipment,
yes,
and it is found by the Capitol Police or your staff, and it is identified as that member's equipment, and the member is not associated with any case, and that is their equipment, it is supposed to be returned. Yes or no?
Depends on the circumstances, and if the circumstances
I don't understand how that's possible. Members' equipment is members' equipment. It is not. Under my understanding, the Capitol Police is not able to confiscate members' equipment when the member is not under investigation. It is their equipment, and it's supposed to be returned.
Well, I think there's extenuating circumstances in this case, and I think that working through my counsel and the necessary personnel, if that in fact is the case, and with the permission of through the investigation, then we'll return the equipment. But until that's accomplished, I can't return the equipment.
I think you're violating the rules when you conduct your business that way. and should expect that there would be consequences.
And you should expect there will be consequences. Consequences. What'd you make of that?
That was pretty cold. It's like, hold my drink, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and keep it cold. She really, as I said before, was going to bat, and we really need to kind of know why she stuck by him. She says she feared anti-Muslim bigotry, but her interest in getting that laptop back from police who were conducting what certainly looked like a legitimate cybersecurity investigation is curious.
So where does this go from here? Is she answering questions about it? Have you been able to talk to her?
Well, she's not answering questions, and this story's not going to go away. This guy's being indicted now on an unrelated bank fraud. We think it's an unrelated bank fraud charge, but there's a theory that this is just kind of a placeholder for other charges that could ensue. Again, we have really no clue about this, but it's not a story that's going to go away, certainly not through her silence.
And I noticed the White House press office jumped in and said this should be thoroughly investigated. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. Nice to pile on with Debbie Wasserman Schultz when they can. Mark Caputo, thank you very much for your time. All right, and when we come back, another candidate running for the seat being vacated by Ileana Ross-Layton. We'll introduce you to her when we come back.